All right. Shalom, everyone. Rosh Chodesh Sameach. What else can I get you to say? So much power. I say something and you repeat it. How wonderful. Okay, never mind. All right, so welcome to our Rosh Chodesh service for the month of Cheshvan. Easy for me to say. And so we're going to go ahead and go through our service, which is mostly done through a slide presentation where we'll all read what's on the slides, except for the part where I announce the new moon and the new month, and so we'll pretty much read everything else together. It's a very short service, so as far as the actual slide part, and then I'll probably say a few words afterwards, and so you're welcome to stand for the entire service. So if you'll all rise, we'll begin with the sounding of the silver trumpet. Amen. Amen. Okay, together we're going to read the slides. Did it come up on the screen yet? Yeah. On our screen, there. No, I was waiting for it to be on the live stream screen. There we go. Together. Yahweh sifatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Yahweh, open my lips that my mouth declare your praise. May the expressions of my mouth and the thoughts of my heart find favor before you, Yahweh, my rock and my redeemer. Also in the day of your gladness and in your appointed times and in the beginnings of your months, you shall blow with the trumpets over the burnt offerings and over the sacrifices of your peace offerings, that they may be to you for a memorial before your Elohim. I am Yahweh, your Elohim. Kedushat Levanah. O Yahweh, our Elohim, and Elohim of our fathers, make this coming month one of good and blessing. Grant us long life, a life of peace, of good, of blessing, of sustenance, of vigor. A life marked by a reverence for you and a dread of sin. A life free from shame and reproach, a life of prosperity and honor. A life in which love of the living Torah and the fear of Elohim animates us. A life in which our heartfelt desires are fulfilled for good. In the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, Amen. Go back. Okay, next slide. He who performed miracles for our fathers and liberated them from slavery to freedom, may he quickly liberate us and gather our exiles from the four corners of the earth, and let us say, Amen. The new moon of the month of Cheshvan is today. May it prove to be good and fruitful for all 12 tribes of Yisrael. May the set-apart one, blessed be he, grant this Rosh Chodesh to us and to all his people for life and peace, for gladness and joy, for deliverance and consolation, and let us say, Amen. Together. Blessed, praised, glorified, honored, and exalted be the name of the King of Kings, the set-apart one, blessed be he, who is the first and the last, and beside him there is no Elohim. Extol him in the heavens, Yahweh is his name, rejoice before his face. His name is honored beyond all blessing and praise. Blessed be his name, whose glorious kingdom is forever and ever. Let the name of Yahweh be blessed forever and ever. I got a little ahead of myself there, sorry. Isaiah 66, verse 22 and 23. For as the new heavens and the new earth that I make stand before me, declares Yahweh, so your seed and your name shall stand. And it shall be that from Rosh Chodesh to Rosh Chodesh, and from Shabbat to Shabbat, all flesh shall come to worship before me, declares Yahweh. Amen. Amen. All right, Rosh Chodesh Sameach. All right, you may be seated. And some of you may be noticing that my beard's a little less. I'm trying to accelerate the weight loss by at least cutting off the extra hair. I don't know. I'm going to get you, Jet. Okay. So, it is a new moon. It is a new month. And it's actually an important one for us in terms of our mindset because it's the first one after Sukkot. And so, we went through the whole Moedim cycle. We went through the feast, the appointed time cycle. And now we're starting this journey between Sukkot forward towards Pesach. And so, yes, we still have Hanukkah in the middle there, and we still have Purim in the middle there, but really it's this journey from Sukkot over to Pesach. And actually, let's bring Hanukkah into the mix. So Hanukkah is about rededicating yourself. And I don't think we should wait until Hanukkah to do that. I think that always when we get these new moons, these turnings of the page, psychologically and emotionally as well as physically, we can feel like we're, starting a new page or new chapter. I think it's a good time for us to, as always, take a self-inventory. I didn't say to take anybody else's inventory, okay? But take a self-inventory. And with that self-inventory, I think that one of the things that we want to look at is, are we going to do what we had to do this is leading in then again to Hanukkah in a couple of months here, but as we lead into Hanukkah, are we doing the cleaning out of the clutter? Because remember what they had to do to rededicate the temple was to clean it out. And so I want you to look to see what's cluttering up and blocking up and taking up a lot of unnecessary space in your life. In terms of also in your mind and in your heart. Do you have a bunch of stuff, as Agnes would sing, let it go, let it go? Do you have anything that you need to let go? Stuff that you've been holding on to and holding on to and holding on to and just have not released? So I want you to look at your life and think, well, I want to put this in perspective before I say that. The physical stuff, as I've said many times, is not really the issue. I know in some ways it's where you trip up, but you trip up because of the emotional and the mental side. You don't trip up because the physical thing was tough to do. If you break a commandment, you broke it because you had a psycho-emotional problem, not a physical problem. Okay, you didn't physically accidentally steal something or, bear false witness or it wasn't a physical thing to break Sabbath or whatever. I mean, you didn't physically just have a challenge where your body just went and did something. It's all thought, emotion driven. And so we call that maturity development, right? Maturing. And so this is what we want to be looking at every month is not only are we getting the mechanics down, but I want to encourage you that more importantly, the weightier matter, so to speak, is to get our thought, heart, spirit side. And people think, well, how come he never says spirit? Because the spirit of it is the fullness of the intent, and his fullness of his intent is that you get your head wrapped around this and your heart wrapped around it. The truth of it was he wanted you to do what he said. The spirit of it is he wanted you to do it with the right heart and mind, the right thinking, right emotions. And so I want to encourage you that first of all, again, as always, you can do this. But also I want to encourage you to say, and it's you that must do this. And this is something that others have heard me saying and they get all upset and everything because I put such an emphasis on your responsibility for your stuff. You are primarily responsible, as you've heard me say many times, for all aspects of your life. Now, Yahweh does take care of those things you can't do. And I don't want you to ever think for 1 second, no matter what you've ever been told, that he's going to do a single thing you won't do. We have to overcome whatever's causing us to do that mindset of, I won't do it. I don't want to. I don't like it. And so this is important. We have to embrace that. And in order to do that, you've got a lot of things already occupying, space in your head and space in your heart. And just like if you moved into a new space, some of the stuff that you bring from the old space into the new may not fit just right. Or you may realize it's just a lot of clutter and it's just taking up a lot of space. Or maybe you have a lot more stuff now that's new where you live in your house or your apartment, and you realize, I can't really buy anything new. I got no place to put it. Well, that's because you have to get rid of some things. Oh no, the problem is I need a bigger place. Maybe, maybe not. The problem is you probably need to get rid of some stuff. In some ways, we're all like the hoarders who like to hold on to and never let go. And this I'm mostly talking about from an emotional, a psycho-emotional or mental and emotional place. How much of the past needs to finally be released? How much of the things that are ultimately now triggers for you, like these are tripwires for you, could really be removed by just letting some things go? Some hatred, some anger, some jealousies, some insecurities, some anxieties, whatever that is. I think that it really, really, really is vital that we get to the place where we can release so that we can receive. Okay, that's maybe the way I want to phrase it. Can you understand that you have to release old stuff? Like the idea of like you want to take in new wine into the old wineskin. Well, let's picture it in a different way, because the old wineskin metaphor is that the new wine would end up bursting the wineskin. Well, let's take it from the direction of you can't put new wine in a full old wineskin. You got to dump out the old wine first. Otherwise, there's no place to put the new wine. And so, if you're going to go in from being an old wineskin to a new wineskin, and you went into the water and you made your declarations and you made these commitments of covenant, but you didn't empty the vessel, there's nothing to fill it with. Okay? And I want to encourage you to really consider the emptying of the vessel, the uncluttering of all that just useless, sentimental junk. And by sentimental, because you only keep it because this emotional attachment to it on some level. So there has to be some sentimental reason why you're holding on to it. And by the way, some of you are thinking, well, why would I hold on to all this anger and bitterness and pain? Because it's yours, and it feels like something that's yours, and you don't want to let it go. And you have to release that. Because you might be thinking, well, I don't want all this pain and all this negative emotions. Well, you must on some level, or you would let it go. But then there must be a fear attached to releasing it. And so you need to dig down and figure out what would be the reason why you would be concerned or afraid to let go of something. Well, if I let go of it, maybe it'll mean that I'll be okay letting it happen again, whatever it was. Well, that's not actually rationally true from a rational perspective. Releasing the pain of something doesn't mean you forgot what happened. Doesn't mean that you're now not better prepared so it doesn't happen again. It just means that you're letting go of all of the anger, bitterness, anxiety, insecurity, shame, whatever. I mean, I don't think that if you want to picture, and this is, I think, what we're all hoping for, right? We picture this idea of going from the corruptible into the incorruptible. Do you think the incorruptible is going to house a being with those thoughts? With very corrupted thoughts of insecurity and anxiety and shame and anger and bitterness and jealousies and envies and all of that stuff? Why would you put a physically incorruptible body on a very corrupted thought process? Oh, some of you are thinking, oh, now I know I'll never get in. No, you can do it. You can. And you must. He expects you to do it. And he called you knowing you could, and he expects you to do it. The problem is that we are so, don't be offended, but we're so easily defeated. We're very weak. And I've said this in the previous, Rosh Chodesh meetings about that we have a problem with weakness. And some of you get all offended with even the thought that someone thinks you're weak. Well, that's weakness. Okay? If you're getting offended on any level, there's a weakness there. All right? I don't care how strong you are in every area, but if you get offended by anything, that's an area of weakness. True strength can't be offended. True strength, it's easy for me to say. True strength doesn't have any shame. True strength owns everything and deals with it, owns it, fixes it, etc. Any area that you don't do these things in, that's an area of weakness. And this is why we have these type of teachings that are connected to, these new cycles of a new moon, a new month, is to get us to make sure that each month, without, missing, I'm hoping that each month I'm going to remind you, number one, you can do this. Number two, it's you that has to do this. He's already done his part, and whatever's still left for him to do, he will do. There should be no thought or doubt that he will complete his part. But he's not going to do your part. And I know a lot of people where they came from Christianity or people that are still in there, then when they find us on live stream, that's when they want to turn off the YouTube and write nasty comments. Because how dare you tell me I'm responsible for me? As a human being, okay, now we are not even in the same realm of conversation with what Elohim is, right? Like an amoeba to a human being. So, but as a human being, we would, with our children, teach them responsibility for themselves. Wouldn't we? And if we would do that in our flawed understanding, the best that we understand, how much more so our Heavenly Father, who in that role as a father figure is expecting his children to grow up to be responsible. I mean, I've got 2 teenagers right now who are getting closer to the age of adulthood, and I'm hoping that the things that I'm teaching them will help them to be responsible, successful adults. Now, in the Scriptures, we're given guidance as to the things that we need to know, understand, and then do in terms of our responsibilities as adults. If you went into the mikveh, if you went in the water and got baptized in this ministry, not into this ministry, but if we were the ones who performed the baptism, you made 8 declarations. If you made the declarations, one of them was a declaration that of your own free will, you chose freely to take upon yourself all of the responsibilities of being a citizen in the kingdom of Elohim. You can't do that without being a responsible person. Which means you have to own your things and your part and your expectations that he has for you and do what he expects you to do in a responsible way. Which means, according to Scripture, with your diligence, with your utmost, with your remembering, guarding, and focusing upon, meditating on. It's a whole different way of looking at everything. And so I want to encourage all of you, again, you can do this. Maybe not overcome it all and fix it tomorrow, but every month we talk about this, and every month I'm hoping you're going to look back, and when you look back, you're going to realize, oh, wow, I actually have moved forward a little bit. Sometimes it'll be a little bit more than a little bit, sometimes maybe a little bit less, but you're going to be moving forward, hopefully. And if you're not moving forward that much, hopefully it causes you to get a little more focused and excited that I need to really get my stuff going and get going forward. It'll be a motivator. You got to crack the whip on yourself a little bit if you're not really getting forward. But don't expect you're going to go from where you are to the end result in one day. You have a whole life to do this, whatever that is. But don't put it off either. He called you when he did. Okay, maybe I've never said this before. Pay really good attention. He called you when he did because you need every minute he gave you. Think about that. I don't care if he called you at 30 or at 60. He called you knowing that whatever time you have, and you don't know how much you have, the person who's 60 may have more years than you who has 30. But he called you knowing that that moment when he called you, you had enough time to do what you needed to do if you didn't waste too much of it, if you didn't squander it. Keep that in mind. He called you knowing that you have allotted to you the time you need. If, and this is the hard part for you, if you don't waste it. If you recognize that I have to wake up because time is now. Because now is the only time you have. You may have years and years, but right now is the time, and you can't waste this time. Those of you that are watching right now, you're taking advantage of the time. You're doing something. He commands to celebrate the new moon. You're hearing a message that could possibly change your whole life and your whole walk. Seriously, this is no pride or ego. What I gave you can change everything in your life if you would embrace it. Just those concepts I gave you could change everything. Without any more detail of how to go about it. Just knowing you can and knowing what's yours and what your responsibility is and knowing that he has given you enough time to do it, that could be a life changer right there. The uncluttering, the maturing, the growing up. Many of us suffer from, what they call arrested emotional development. Okay? Which means that at some point your emotional development stopped. And you no longer were developing emotionally as you normally would. A crisis, a trauma, something in your life could have caused. Now, when I say arrested emotional development, it doesn't mean in every area of your life. But in certain areas of your life, you may have ceased to mature and grow because of something. Guess whose job it is to figure that out? You. Recognize. You should recognize, especially if you're an adult, you should recognize that you do struggle in some areas that other people seem not to struggle in, and the other people struggle in areas that you don't. And instead of looking at them kind of strangely going, I wonder why they don't struggle with this area, because I do, figure out that, well, there may be a reason. Maybe I have an arrested development in that area. Emotionally, I'm locked in at 8 or 12 or whatever age the trauma happened or whatever it was that happened to you. And then go ahead and find the help you need to fix these things, to resolve them, to unravel them, so that you can let it go and start to grow. I've done a lot of work with people like this. We had somebody, I'm not going to mention who, they'll know who they are. But I remember having a young lady come to us at one point. She was in her mid-20s, but she probably emotionally was about 15 because of the environment she had been in. And you know what? Through working with her, we got her gradually to 17 and then to 20 and then eventually to her age emotionally. And she's grown up to be a fantastic woman. And she wasn't that she was a bad woman before, but there were certain areas of her life that had gotten arrested in their development. All of you can fix those things if you choose to. And you're thinking, but I don't have any idea how to do it. That's why there are professionals and experts in all those areas. Because you're not supposed to be able to figure it all out yourself. Come to me, get some counseling. If I can't handle it, I'll send you to whoever is out there and tell you, you need to go get a professional for that. And don't own shame and this and that and embarrassment and everything. I'm not going to some professional. Because then, if you're going to do that, which is fine, I guess, then just don't complain about it anymore and just own that you've chosen to stay where you are. And don't keep expecting the rest of the world to adjust to you. Because that's what everybody does. They expect the whole world to adjust to them because it's way too much effort for me to adjust to you or me to fix my problem. Everybody should just adjust to me. It's much easier that the whole world has to adjust to me than me fix my problem. And then add that into a congregation of 200 or add that into a body of millions and then see how well that could work. It can't work. And I look, and this is very important. I talk about being in and living in reality, bringing reality into everything we can. Reality is none of that, I promise you, none of that junk will be in the kingdom. But I also promise you it's not going to be there. It's not going to not be there because he waves his hand. It's going to not be there because those who are there have overcome. Those who are there have grown. Those who are there have developed their emotions to where they need to be and matured. You were sold a bill of goods in Christianity that somehow he was just going to do it all, so you didn't have to worry about any of this. When we get to that place, he's just going to give us a new body and a new heart and change the heart of stone to a heart of flesh and blah, 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 blah. By fiat. In other words, he's just going to make it happen without you doing anything. Now, this doesn't, if you really think about it, you should understand how illogical that is and irrational that is. Oh, I understand why you want that to be true, because therefore you do not have to make the effort and don't have to fix anything. Wouldn't it be great? But think about it this way. If that were true, okay, if that was true, why is he waiting to do all that? I mean, if that's true, he could do it at any point. I mean, if he's going to fix everything and just wave his hand at it and make it all new, why are we suffering? That would seem kind of cruel to make us go through all of this terrible stuff that we deal with in the below, in the flesh, in this physical life, doesn't it? So you know logically that that can't be true. There has to be some role we are playing in it, or he wouldn't leave us around like this. And you have to own that reality. Now, I talked to you guys about this during Sukkot, the idea that revelation, and I'm not talking about prophecy the way you thought in the church and everything. I mean, when something is revealed, whatever it is, to you, like some of the things I just told you in the last 15, 20 minutes may have been revelatory to you, like you had never heard it before. It was something was revealed to you and about what you can do and things like that. That revelation is only effective if the second step is done, which is you have to receive that. You have to receive it. Like when you first heard about the Sabbath, maybe the first time you heard about it, you didn't receive it. But at some point for you to start moving in that direction, you had to receive the revelation that Saturday, not Sunday, was Shabbat. You had to receive. Then the third step is to act upon it. And so none of this is going to be of any value, which some of you are thinking, well, you said this last month and the month before, and in some form or another, I say this almost every week, because this is where we struggle. I mean, every verse we read and every section we read, I find some, and it's not like I'm bending and twisting the word to get to it. There's always some good excuse to go in this direction, because this is what we need to grow into Him. Growing into Him isn't a physical thing. It's all thoughts, decisions, emotions. And the decisions come out of the thoughts and emotions. So it's thoughts and emotions which cause decisions, which is the making decisions teaching that I did call making decisions is the reason you exist. We exist to show Him our decision-making process, and then as we grow, that process becomes more like His. It develops into a more Yeshua-like mindset, decision-making machinery that we should have inside, with the thoughts and the emotions working together to eventually come to a decision, and decisions lead to actions. And so if you're only doing because someone's making you or because you're just afraid of some zapping from above, you're missing the point. The covenant was, we do this because we trust that if we obey Him, all the blessings He promised will be there. And because He's going to take care of all of us in every way possible, if we're doing our part, don't forget the if. But because we understand that He has offered and promised to take care of everything, if we do our part, we understand why He asks us to love Him with everything. Because it's going to take all that love to keep us focused from all the other things we love or care about distracting us. And we are so easily distracted by all these things that we have feelings for. Some of you are going to have a hard time when someone in your family wants to get married on a Saturday, because you have feelings for family members that are getting married, or for family members that might get mad at you for not showing up, or whatever it is. Or somebody in your family may die and the funeral will be on a Saturday. Or somebody in your family may graduate, in the spring from a school on a Saturday. Or your boss may tell you, listen, if you can't come in on Saturday, you're going to be fired. Where's the emotion? Is the emotion about caring about the things of the below? The below being earthly, fleshly, down here, below, heaven being above, spiritual and the above? Or is the emotion focused vertically on the above, on the heavenly, on the spiritual, and it's not really a tough decision at all? It may be a little tough to deal with the fallout of the decision, but the decision itself should not be a difficult thing to do. Okay? It should be very simple. Someone invites you, say, listen, I'm sorry, but I can't go. Oh, blah, blah, blah. I understand you're upset. I don't want to upset you. I'm not doing this to upset you. I'm not doing this to hurt your feelings. It's not that I don't love you. I just love him more. Okay? That's all. I love you, but I love him more. And can you make decisions with that heart and that mindset? That's really the key. Can you make decisions through that filter? See, whoever you love more is going to win. Wherever your stronger emotion is going to win. I've taught you this plenty of times, and maybe if you're brand new, you've not heard me. But the same thing with our thoughts and our emotions. Whichever's stronger wins. If you have a stronger thought than the emotion, you're going to do what the thought is, regardless of the emotion. Okay, I know I need to go to the gym and work out. I don't want to go, but I'm going to go anyway if the thought's stronger. If the emotion's stronger, I'm not going to go. Do you understand? I want to keep my covenant. So, that's a thought. I want to keep covenant. If the emotion's weak and somebody asks you to break covenant, you might break it if your emotion is stronger for that. If the emotion is with that thought, or the thought is strong enough, you're going to stick where you need to go. He wants you to have the emotion and the thoughts together going in the same direction. Now you've got something extremely powerful. Which is also why you get in trouble when that's focused in a wrong direction and your thought and your emotion is going in the same direction. Either way, it's the most powerful thing you have is when your mind, which is your heart and your thoughts, when your mind is echad, when your mind is one. You set your mind on something. If there's a battle going on, that's where you have confusion of mind because you're split, you're divided. Your heart wants one thing, your thought wants a different, your head or your thoughts wants a different thing. We need to be, as it says in Scripture, of one mind. And we're told in Philippians, let this mind be in you. Philippians 2:5. I should start asking you where these verses are. I say them so often, you should know where they are. Okay? Let this mind be in you that was in Messiah Yeshua. And what was his mind? His thought was, I'm going to keep covenant. I trust and obey, and I look to everything my Father says, and that's what I do. And I love him with everything. Thought, emotion, congruent, echad, together. That's his mind. There wasn't a thought in him to break anything. The only reason we have the thoughts to break anything is because either a heart or a mind is out of line. Sometimes our heart is towards him, but our mind is in a different place. And then we try to rationalize things and convince ourselves that what we want to do is okay. And then we have a thought, that person looks pretty cute. Oh, but another thought says, but I'm married. And the heart says, no, we shouldn't be doing this because we love him. Well, what if the thought is stronger? Yeah, but and then the heart gets behind that thought. You have a divided heart. Part of the heart's for him, part of the heart's for doing what you want. We use the word echad a lot about Yahweh, right? Yahweh is one, echad. Husband and wife supposed to be echad. You're not even echad in your own body. Not attacking anybody, just stating what's likely to be the truth. Do you really have, let's for this next 30 days, for this new moon and going forward, work on being echad in our own body, in our own mind, where our heart and our thoughts are in harmony. They're heading in one direction, and they're aligned with him. Because some of you have your hearts and your thoughts aligned, but they're aligned with other things. And by the way, when you see very, very, very successful people out there, I mean by worldly standards. How did they get to be successful? They managed to have one mind. We call that focus. We call that purpose, focus, obsession, whatever you want to call it, where their mind and their heart is just laser on what they want. See, some of you think, well, I really struggle with this, that, or the other thing because you don't have your heart and your mind, your whole mind, which is your heart and your thoughts, focused in the same direction. They're going off in different directions. It just doesn't work. If you ever tried, and I did this many years ago, if you ever tried doing things like, multiple person, canoeing, or if you're doing like rowing and that kind of thing, You get one person stroking a little bit different, the whole thing gets really messed up. Everybody has to be together at the same time, in unison, etc. And so if you've got thoughts that are not playing nice with everybody else, it's going to create all kinds of hiccups in where you're trying to do and where you're trying to go. And so we have our work cut out for us. And some of you are thinking, please stop, Rabbi. You already gave me way too much stuff to work on this month. So what are we going to do? We're going to work on all of these things. We're going to work on uncluttering. We're going to work on the, I wrote some of this down. Of course, I never looked. We're going to letting it go. Letting go all that baggage. We're going to make sure that the wineskin is empty enough to receive new stuff. We're going to receive revelation. I'm not talking again like the Father told me to tell you, and the Father, I'm talking about just listen to me. Listen to what the book says. Listen to the teachings. And if He reveals something to you as it's being said and coming out of His word, receive it. And then act on it. Okay, but you have to receive it. I got a lot of people out there that tell me, oh, yeah, no, I'm Torah observant now and everything else, and they're still not wearing seat. You men out there, don't tell me you're Torah observant and you're not wearing the seat. Okay, don't tell me you're not Torah observant and you're not here every Shabbat. Don't tell me you're Torah observant and so you're working or something. Don't tell me you're Torah observant and you're not tithing. Don't tell me you're Torah observant and you're eating the wrong thing. Pursuant, I would say yes. You're pursuing that direction. While you're learning and you're making your mistakes, sure, you're Torah pursuant. And be really careful while you're pursuing, especially when you're new at it. Don't think you become a teacher now to tell other people about it when you don't even know what kind of example you're setting. Put the oxygen mask on first, like they teach you in the airplane, before you start trying to help everybody else. Okay? Discovering that Sunday is the wrong day and Saturday is the right day is not the same thing as having the oxygen mask on. That's you realizing there's an oxygen mask actually over there and not behind you somewhere or wherever it is. So now you know at least where the oxygen mask is. And now you got to go in that direction to grab a hold of it and take it and put it on and everything. There's a lot more to it. All right. So hopefully that was helpful. I'll leave you with that to kind of chew on and to work on as you go forward through the new moon. We'll open up for some questions, just if anybody has some comments or questions about that, because after all, I threw a lot of stuff at you. Okay, so we'll go ahead and open that up. Let's wait. Craig, just give us a minute. We're going to put the stand and the mic out for you. And then Brian's got the live stream desk if people want to type something in. And we'll just have about 15, 20 minutes. We'll end at 9 o'clock, so hopefully we'll just get a couple of them in there quickly. All right, Craig.
Yes, one of the things with clearing out this stuff with this week's Torah portion. In Noah, we have the example of the flood and how Noah really did the work required to take care of him and his family. Kind of different from what we're going to see Abraham do with the cities and the fire. I guess fire could be another way to help us kind of get rid of. So I think what you're saying really lines up with the next couple Torah portions here about cleaning stuff out, either it seems like by water or by fire. The Torah portions kind of clean out some unrighteousness. And then another one is the word dedicated will come up. And there's going to be some cities that will be dedicated to Yah. And when we dedicate our minds, could be actually similar to what happened to the cities, that they become no good for anything else. I think is what the word dedicated actually means, that when they raised those cities, they were going to be used only for that purpose, and for that purpose only. And if we can clear all of us out, we can dedicate ourselves to Him. And I think it lines up with the upcoming Torah portions.
Amen. That's true. You can see, look, when we look at the scripture and we see the journey, from Genesis all the way through, we can see a lot of people needing to let go of a lot of stuff and to unclutter and to take in new stuff and change the way they think, the way they see things, the way they feel about things. And when they fail, it doesn't go well. And when they figure it out, it tends to go much more smoothly, okay? All right, Janet?
Thank you, Rabbi. I have tons of notes. And I actually have a praise for Yahweh, but for you, thanks to you, because today I got to hear feedback from somebody who I recommended your forgiveness teaching a few months ago. And she was just saying, oh my goodness, it's just this guy, she calls him guy because she doesn't know you, but he's so right on. And I was like, I had to stop and go back and
Which teaching was that?
Forgiveness.
Oh, the forgiveness teaching,
Yes. So like you said, receive and apply. So she's having still a hard time applying, but at least she's getting the concept from it. But I had a question about releasing the pain. You said releasing all the corrupted thoughts of jealousy, envy, anxiety, insecurity, all that. And I was listening to a teaching today about somebody else, a secular guy, about love and how love, the high frequency, if you're in love. So emptying whatever is there that is not from him, but at the same time trying to become like him with his love, right? Like when I thought about the anxiety and the insecurity and all that, I thought, if we're acting on that and following that, that's not, if it's not from him, it's from Hasatan, I suppose.
Well, either that or just from yourself. I mean, we cause most of our own problems.
But initially, would you say that that's the reason why he ended up rebelling? Because there was a lot of that in whatever his heart or whatever he's being?
Well, when you're being rebellious, you're acting in a way like him. And so we call that the spirit of Hasatan. But it's not that he has anything to do with that. You just made a choice to align yourself with that mindset. Okay.
So I just have a question about tying it together with what you were saying and the homework that you gave us, releasing, letting go, aligning ourselves, becoming a heart with him and his mind, being like Yeshua. The love concept is kind of like where I wanted you to give us more in terms of, if we're making the effort to get everything that is not of him, replenishing it with the love for him, for each other.
But remember, then you have to go back and listen to the love teaching so you understand what that actually is scripturally. I mean, look, I think we're going to find a very, I can't picture how it's actually going to play out, but at some point when we are in the kingdom, so to speak, it's going to be interesting to find out how wrong we were about how much in our lives that we thought was Yahweh and it wasn't, and how much we thought was Hasatan and it wasn't. As well as how much was either one of them that we didn't have any idea was them. Because we love to attribute so much and just say, oh, well, the Father did this, or Yahweh did that, or this one did this, and they maybe did, but I think we'll be really shocked to find out how much of that is just not true, and how much of it that they actually are doing, you don't even notice or really give the right attention to. It's just, we're just so quick to kind of place their names wherever we feel they belong. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how much of that, because I know a lot of people say, oh, well, the Father, opened up the doors to this job. Maybe they just opened up, maybe. And then, it's often, I can't tell you how many times someone tells me the Father opened something up and then only a few months later we find out the thing was a disaster. I thought you said the Father opened it up. You really don't know until 2020 hindsight, really, as it really plays out. Same thing with blaming Hasatan for stuff that really you're quite capable of causing most of that all by yourself. Now, there are probably things he's doing that you're just not as well. He's much more subtle and brilliant than you're giving him credit for, and so you want to give him all the obvious things because it's much easier than owning it yourself. That's what the church taught you anyway. And so that was just an easy scapegoat deal there for you. So I want you just to consider that, to be more reluctant to labeling who you think or what you think is behind stuff, and just learn from and deal with whatever's happening without necessarily having to attribute to anybody. I'm not saying never do that. I'm just saying just be more reluctant about it, because I think we'll get it wrong a lot. And I think, it will be quite fascinating to find out how wrong we were and how often we were wrong. Just a thought. Anybody think that might be the case? All right, some hands? Okay. The rest of you are too tired to raise your hands, I know. Okay, Steve?
All right, and you talked about owning and letting go and stuff like that. in realization, if we have something we have to let go, we also should realize that in our actions, we might have caused hurt that might not be repairable. And how do you deal with that? Or because you have, if there's another person involved, then you have that person's understanding of what should or should not take place going forward. So how do you work that in with being able to let go? Say something I had said upset somebody, and okay, I can let it go, but now I have to deal with the other person and them not prepared to let go and go forward. So there's all kind of you know what I'm...
It's fun, isn't it? It's a lot of fun. Okay, so let's be clear, all right? One of the tools I gave you recently was accepting the reality that you have only a very limited effect on reality. You can only really work with you. You can have some influence to a limited degree on other people, and only a few of those. Depending on your relationships and how close they are, you may have some influence there. But really, we have a very limited effect on anybody else's behaviors and actions and thoughts and decisions and that kind of thing. So the forgiveness thing, and again, all of you got to go back and listen to it, but not just listen to it. Receive the revelation and then do what is instructed in there. Forgiveness seems to confuse everybody. It's not complicated. Listen to the beginning of the teaching where it's very clear. The first thing you need to understand is that you must release all negative emotions connected to what happened. Now, that doesn't require the other person to do anything. So if you're asking yourself, I wonder if I've forgiven this person. I don't know. How do you feel about him? Well, I never want to see them again. That's okay. That could be a thought, not a feeling. You may feel unsafe, and or you may have the thought that it's not safe, and I realize it's not safe. But the emotion, are you angry? Are you hurt? Are you bitter? Is it painful? Is there shame? Is there, some negative emotion, whatever that is? And if you still hold that, you haven't really let go, so you haven't really forgiven. And you don't even have to ever tell them this, because it may be someone that's not safe to talk to. So you don't want to go talk to them. But the forgiveness process is an individual that you must do. Now, if you want restoration, reconciliation, then you have to have an interaction with the other person, which is what you're talking about, Steve. I've let it go, but if they haven't let it go, well, then reconciliation and restoration is going to be really tough. Okay? In order to have those other two things happen, then all involved have to do a certain amount of letting go, or it doesn't work. So even if there's a reconciliation and restoration, but if that's done without forgiveness, it's not going to last. It's going to be terrible. It's going to keep blowing up over and over again because the negative emotions are still there. So to have reconciliation and restoration, you have to let go of the negative feelings. That doesn't mean that you forget what happened. That doesn't mean that you now put yourself back in the same position to have it happen again necessarily. We're talking about the way you feel currently, not in the past. We know how you felt. You know how you felt. But how do you feel now? And if you can have the thought and learn from that experience without feeling the pain anymore, then you've truly forgiven. But you have to have no negative emotional connection there. And so, Steve, you can let it go, which means that you can let go all of the negative emotions connected to whatever happened. You can't make the other person do it. And so if you've genuinely done it, their not doing it should not affect you. See, if they're not doing it trips you up, you really haven't let it go. Did you follow that? Everybody needs to hear that. If you let it go, that's your thought, right? I let it go. I'm not mad anymore. And then you go and interact with them, and it's clear that they didn't let it go. And that puts you right back where you were. You didn't let it go. I know that's tough, but it's the truth. This is why I like doing the questions, because it brings up some important things. all of us struggle with this because you think you're doing great, and then you go to the person that you're having the problem with, and they push a button because they didn't let it go, and then boom, you're right back where you were, proving that you really hadn't. Because if you let it go, there wouldn't be anything to push. Released it, it's not there anymore. But if it's still there, then you respond. Did that help? Okay. Ashley? I think Brian will go right to you.
My question is with being rational and having your heart and your thought aligned. How today, this teaching is it's interesting. It falls on a day of what happened today with my family emergency. I don't know if Elder told you. But I caught myself being more rational than I thought I ever would be in this situation. But I still caught myself slipping. And how would you, in that moment, when I'm catching myself slipping, what would be a way to say, put the brakes on, stay rational, and don't let your emotions drive?
Well, look, it starts like I've told you in the past, all of you in the past, and it starts with we'll call it a hyper-vigilant awareness of yourself. The more aware you are of yourself at any moment, the more you can catch yourself doing the different things or going into a mindset or to an emotional place, and you can then have a chance to stop that direction that you started moving in if you're aware. The problem is we're not paying a whole lot of attention to anything, let alone ourselves. And so we end up just responding and reacting instead of proactively aware and making choices. We're responding to things. And by then, we've already gone off in that direction. So it's got to start with you being more and more you have to practice, especially when it's not anything major happening. Just practice being aware of how you feel at any given moment and how you're thinking and, how you're feeling when you're talking to somebody. And, are you actually thinking, man, I can't wait to get out of this conversation? Or are you thinking, wow, this is great. I'm really enjoying this. But be aware of whatever you're thinking and what you're feeling. Then you can make choices about how you should be reacting to that. Okay?
And if I may ask, is being scared, or not scared, I wasn't scared, being nervous and overwhelmed, is that an emotional or is that a thought process?
Well, it's an emotional response to a thought. A lot of things are happening, which is why we feel overwhelmed. And then when those things are happening, the level to which you feel that you have the capacity to handle it is either going to be, there are things that one person may say, wow, my plate was overflowing, I was overwhelmed, I couldn't handle all that. Another person might think, I could have handled that. And that's not to say one is better than the other, it just has to do with their capacity. And again, this isn't bragging, but I've seen people try to do some of the things that I do, and they can't do it because they don't have the same capacity. But that same token, there's things they do that I can't do, And so overwhelmed is an emotional response to the volume of things that are going on. And so the thought is, wow, I've got a lot going on. The emotion is, hey, that's cool, I can handle it all, and this keeps me busy. Or the emotion could be, wow, this is overwhelming, and I'm getting, anxiety over it because it's just, all those plates are in the air, and some of them are going to start to fall and break. Okay? And so it's an emotional response to the actual event. Okay, good. Okay, Brian.
All right, from Justin and Denise Rodriguez, they're asking you to clarify what the process was. Can you clarify, was it unclutter, let it go, receive revelation, and then act upon it?
None of that was a process. The only thing that had a process was the revelation, receive the revelation, and then act upon it. The rest of the stuff was just stuff I was throwing at you, like uncluttering, letting it go. I was just throwing a lot of stuff at you, okay? The only thing that was a process was the revelation process, which is something's revealed to you, you receive it, and then you act upon it. The other stuff was just lots of stuff just thrown at you. I want to just give you, every time I get in front of you, I feel like I want to give you as much as I can in as short a period as I can. So sometimes I know I probably give you too much, and I could have kept it shorter and just left it at that, but I know that you guys get excited and enjoy it and you want more. So, the service is very short, so I fill it up with teaching. Okay? And as somebody said earlier, Rabbi unscripted. I mean, I just get up here and just allow whatever Abba wants to give me to. I had 2 things written down, which is the let it go and the unclutter, but the rest of it was just speaking, And it's just, I'm allowing him to try to figure out, what do you guys need out there? I mean, I don't want to be the guy thinking, well, somebody out there is having some back pain. How'd you figure that out? But I really want it to be stuff that most of you, are dealing with. And so that it could be useful. Okay, Brian?
Going off of what you just said, I have to say this. Everything that came from the microphone tonight, from my perspective, that wasn't you speaking. That was Yahweh. 100%. I spent probably about 30 minutes in prayer before coming here on some very specific things, and that was Yahweh speaking. So I give you honor and credit for getting out of the way and allowing him to speak. There's no convincing me otherwise.
Amen. I appreciate that. So you prayed about a bunch of things that I covered tonight. I mean, you prayed and those things were awesome.
A lot of that.
Awesome.
The thought process, just about the whole thing, I'm just sitting back here like, okay, Abba, I hear you.
Good. Amen.
From Michaela S., if your parent who lives with you is a trigger for emotional pain, is it wrong to find them another place to live so you can work on healing?
Look, you can't really be useful to yourself and other people if you're in a negative emotional space all the time. So some of that can only be worked out by separating yourself from it. And so you can do that in a way that's as caring as you can be, especially if it's a person like when you're an adult and then you end up having to go either back to or your parents come into your house, that could be really a challenge, all right? And so you may have to separate that out, but still make it clear, I'm going to take care of what you need and I'm still going to provide, but I'm going to do that outside of my house. And something like that you may want counseling about, just to help you with whatever the emotional challenges are, and doing it in a way that is respectful to the person without, overstepping, but also doing what's necessary so that you can have the healing. All right?
Jersey Girl. She says she's having a hard time understanding the difference between decluttering in the world versus doing it with Yahweh.
Look, it's a metaphor for the idea of getting out from inside of you, that which is no longer necessary, just taking up space, getting in the way so you're tripping over it, and that kind of thing. And so it's no different. In the world, you have the same problem. You can't really receive new when you're too busy cluttered up with old. When people come for counseling, a lot of times they can't receive it because they've got such an overflowed and overfilled head and emotions in one direction that they can't receive new information. And so the uncluttering actually, I think, works very similarly. You're just uncluttering different types of things. In this case, I want you to unclutter a lot of worldly things that are just in the way and just wasting your time, and you're tripping over them, and they're just taking up space and occupying space in your head and in your life. Okay, next.
Shelley Bell just wanted to point out she actually has back pain, and you somehow knew that.
Amazing. Amazing.
All right.
Praise ya! Praise ya!
All right.
That means that you need to send in $1,000 seed.
All right, from Jet. Rabbi, how do we encourage people that don't want to help themselves, and instead of receiving good counsel, they see it as a threat or as attacking them?
Okay, read that to me one more time. I want to make sure I answer this one right.
He says, how do we encourage people that don't want to help themselves, and instead of receiving good counsel, they see it as a threat or an attack?
Okay, so the question is, how come I keep hitting my head on the wall and expect it not to hurt? That's really what you're asking me, okay? Look, if somebody doesn't want to receive, all you can do is offer counsel and say, look, this is my counsel, and if you choose not to do it, then what you're dealing with probably will not change. And if that's what you want to do, that's up to you. Stop connecting. This is the key. Stop connecting or investing in the outcome of counsel. This is only for those giving counsel. It's not most people's jobs. But if you're giving counsel to a family member or a good friend, if you're giving some sort of advice, don't be invested in or emotionally bound to the result. You offer, and it's kind of like taking something and throwing it out there, and it's floating in the air towards the person, and they could choose to either, or like if I call you on the phone. You see the phone call, you're looking at the phone, and you could choose to decline the call. You don't have to receive it. You know it's coming, you've seen it on the phone. Or if I throw something in a direction, you don't have to catch it if it's not flying at you so hard that you can't get out of the way. You can just move and it floats past you. But don't be upset that the person didn't catch it and decide to keep going forward. I could never do this job if I had that kind of feelings, because it would be brutal, because almost nobody listens. And Billy's sitting there going, yeah. And you all look at me like, why does he say that? Because it's true. And I know some of you may get offended by that, but there are a few of you, percentage-wise, it's a few that do listen, but very few of you do. Whether it's in counsel or just when the teachings are out there, you just don't receive it. And that's why you don't do it. It's only the few that take the opportunity to receive and do that get the results. Okay, so Jet, you doing leadership where you're doing it in the Philippines, don't allow their response to the counsel to affect you emotionally. It's disappointing, it's frustrating, but if you let it get to you, it's hard to keep going. All right? Okay, next.
From Jasmine Blanchard, how do we stop negative thoughts?
Just stop it. No, I'm kidding. That's my, what? That's my Bob Newhart answer. If you know what I'm talking about, just look up Bob Newhart Stop It on your YouTube and you'll see it. All right. The only way you can stop negative thoughts is to go back to what I told Ashley. Okay, you have to start with vigilance and awareness. In other words, you have to be constantly paying attention to you and your thoughts and your feelings at any moment, so that when the thought comes, you're not going to stop the negative thoughts from coming. What you could do is make sure that they don't get an emotion connected to it, because the thought itself is not a big deal. But the thought connecting to an emotion happens so quickly that we have a problem. Okay? If you can interrupt that flow just for a hypersecond or part of a second and just get in there and go, whoa, hold on. I don't want to hold on to that thought. I'm not attaching any emotion to it. We're going to discard that thought, take it into captivity, so to speak, and block it from getting any emotions connected to it. Eventually, those thoughts will come less and less. But it can't happen until you become much more aware of you. And I don't mean you like, I feel happy, I feel sad so much. I want you to think about, I don't mean that. I want you to be aware of what you're thinking and what you're feeling in situations. Or just by yourself, because a lot of negative thoughts happen when you're by yourself. Just be aware, okay? And you'll get faster at it. Anybody ever do anything that required some speed, and when you first started you were really slow, and eventually you became like the fastest person you knew at doing whatever it was, okay? I know people that would struggle when I teach them how to make seat, and then later on they were like lightning fast making the seat. But they weren't when they started, but after doing it over and over and over, they got really fast at it, okay? So the person who asked the question, practice, 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 which means you have to be aware of the thoughts coming in, practice getting a hold of them, and rejecting the thought. Just like you don't have to take the phone call, the thought comes in, you don't have to let it travel into the heart and get emotions connected to it. All right. You got one more? And we're getting a little later here.
Last one from Anna Uden. Rabbi, how would we go about expressing disappointment or frustration to an elder without being disrespectful?
I would say that you almost said it perfectly by saying to a leader or an elder to say, Elder, I don't want to be disrespectful, but I've got a frustration about something. I don't want to be disrespectful, but I want to communicate that you have to share these things. It's better for you to tell us that you're dealing with something than to not. See, the problem is most people will be frustrated with me or with Rabbi Tom or with Elder Billy or whoever's in leadership, and they'll talk to everybody but us, which doesn't help anything. It only makes it worse. So what you want to do is say, look, I'm not happy with you right now, but I want to make sure I'm trying to be respectful about that. So how, as long as you tell me up front that that's what you're trying to do, I don't care what you say after that. In other words, that's not true. I don't care how you say it after that. Because I'll listen to what you say knowing that it's coming from a struggle being respectful. Because you're upset about something. Now, if you just come in blasting at me, that's very disrespectful. But if you come in saying, look, I've got a problem, and I don't want to be disrespectful, I don't know how this is going to come out, and I may just give you the freedom to say it any way you want at that point. Because I don't offend real easy anyway, and I don't care. But I might interrupt you if you just come blasting away, and I say, wait a minute, that's not the right way to talk to me. It's not the right way to talk to him or whatever it is. But if I give you permission, it's kind of like in the military where you might say, sir, permission to speak freely, please, and he says, permission granted. And then the person could just say what they want. I don't think Billy would have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with it. And so, if you needed to do that, you certainly could do it that way. Okay? All right, that's going to end it there. I hope this was a blessing to everyone. And I pray that all of that was said today is going to go forth and bear fruit, that you receive it and you put it to use into action. All right, anybody wants to wish everybody out there a Rosh Chodesh Sameach, come on up here. Okay. All right, so once we get everybody up here, we're going to wish everybody out there. We're going to wish them a Rosh Chodesh Sameach, a Shavua Tov, which is a good rest of the week, although we're already getting to the middle of the week here, good rest of the week. And then we're going to tell them we love them. We've got just about everybody out here. Marty's getting some more of us on camera here. So if he waves you this way or that way, just move in a little bit. All right, do we have everybody who wants to be on camera here? All right, good. So on 3, we're going to wish everybody Rosh Chodesh Sameach, Shavua Tov, and tell them we love them. Here we go. 1, 2,